values. If there is a way for us from this side of our mouth to honor Islamic architecture and poetry, and from this side of our mouth forget the parts that says kill, kill, kill everyone, then I think you could have wonderful flourishing.
Right, for it to evolve then.
Exactly.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. You know, there's a really good argument that the reason why ISIS and these various radical organizations exist is because of the United States meddling in all these countries for decades and decades. You know, I don't know if you ever saw it, but Glenn Greenwald was on Bill Maher's show. And Glenn, he's a very brilliant guy, and he had a very balanced take on it. And he was arguing with Bill Maher versus why they behave the way they do, and making the argument that a lot of it was because of the United States intervening in their countries, that we've been over there and meddling in their countries and meddling in their policies and their government for so long, that this is the reason why these things happen in the first place. And I don't know if you've ever seen it. It might do a good thing to play it, because it was kind of interesting to watch Bill Maher kind of push back against it. But Glenn Greenwald is very well read and really understands the history of this region.
I'm not a huge Glenn Greenwald fan. Many of the positions he's taken I've really liked. He does seem to have a bit of the self-flagellation reflex when it comes to it all comes down to something that the U.S. has done that's evil, or something that Israel has done is evil. So to our earlier conversation, there are features that ISIS believes in, that they believe in independently of anything that the U.S. could have ever done or will ever do.
But if they were flourishing and we hadn't intervened in their country, do you think it's possible that the rest of the Middle East could be in a similar position? And not to say that Saudi Arabia is perfect, right? The Jamal Khashoggi thing is horrific.
Sure.
I mean, that alone. This is a big criticism for a lot of the American comedians that went over there and participated in the Riyadh Comedy Festival.
Yes.
It's like, do you not know what this regime did to an American journalist?
Right.
But is it possible that these countries could have evolved in a very similar way and
if it
become
weren't for us?
Yes.
No.
No? You don't think so?
No. So Islam has existed for 1,400 years, right?
Right.
In those
But why did these countries, why does the United Arab Emirates, why do they have a much more open society?
Now, I mean, there are all sorts of reasons. Maybe their rulers. I can't speak.
It is a lot of the rulers.
Exactly.
They're much more progressive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They've taken a pill of pragmatism that says that we could still maintain our unique identity while turning an open arms to the West.
Right.
And it takes courageous leaders to say, this is how we can have these two things coexist. I could still be fully steeped in my Muslim identity, but I'm not going to look at the other as a dirty kuffar, right? The dirty non-Muslim, right?
Right.
And so good for them. That's great. But over the 1,400 years, so U.S. is gonna celebrate the 250 year soon, right? Mm-hmm. Islam has existed for 1,400 years. So we could very easily temporarily just go back 250 years prior and remove anything that could be due to the U.S. Is that true? I mean, empirically.
Sure.
Okay. And if we want to remove Israel from the story, we just have to go to 1948, and so that's 70-something years, and then anything that Islam would have done prior to 1948 could not be blamed on the Zionist entity.
Oh, for sure. Well, we could go back to the beginning of the United States, where the United States was being attacked
by the Muslim. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, Thomas Jefferson.
Exactly.
Yes.
So my point is,
Tell everybody that story.
I don't know it too well, but Thomas Jefferson, I think, was being belligerent to some incursions of Muslim piracy or something like
Yes.
that, right?
Where they said that it was their right to do so because we were infidels.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, Winston Churchill has some really savory quotes about what he thought about his interactions with Islam. And now he's British. He's got nothing to do with the United States. This was well before the existence of the Zionist entity. It is part of the playbook to try to always blame some other agent other than our canons for why we're doing what we're doing,
Well, I
right?
think that's why this is a good conversation, right? This is very nuanced. We're kind of laying
you.
out both sides of it.
That's why I love coming on the show whenever you have me on. So if you crack I don't mean you, but anybody who's listening to this, crack a book to say, okay, let me look at the number of military conquests where Islam was the offensive party, right? Not we were for example, people say, oh, the Crusades. Well, the Crusades were a retaliation to hundreds of years of Islamic aggression. It didn't come out of nowhere, but there's always what I call the amnesia of causality. People always forget what was the original starting point. Under Islam, as I said, the primary canonical requirement of Islam is to render the entire world Islamic. Now, again, that doesn't mean that every Muslim believes this. That doesn't mean that every Muslim leader believes this. But we're talking about what's in the canons of the religion.
Right.
It is a violently expansionist ideology. I mean, nothing could be clearer. I've explained this previously on the show, but if you allow me, I'll explain it again. Islam has dual logic. Everything in Islam is broken down into two camps. There is Dar al-Harb and Dar al-Islam, the house of Islam and the house of war. Any country that is not yet under Islamic dominion is classified as under the house of war. That's literally the words. Now, any country that has ever become under Islamic dominion, ever, and then Islam loses, canonically, it must revert back to Islam. So Al-Andalusia, right, Andalusia in current Spain, was at one point controlled by the Moors, right, Muslims. Therefore, when now you hear a lot of these Islamic extremist guys saying, Inshallah, we will get back Al-Andalusia, it's because once it became ours, it must always belong to us. The same argument applies for Israel. Even though Israel has thousands of years of lineage of the Jews to that land as the indigenous owners of that land,